your house and giving you food. Because the Imam, when he would give food, you wouldn't recognize him. He would wear a hood, and it would be in the darkness of the night. And Imam al-Baqir says that when I washed my father's back, it had the marks of it, like it was wounded. He said, I wondered what these wounds were, and he said, I knew that it was the wounds of the heavy bags of grain that he would hold in the middle of the night, which would cut through his back. Imagine that Zayn al-Abidin, the amount he went through, that his neck from Sham, what happened to him, the chain that remained tight on his neck, that was never removed, and the marks on his back from what he used to give out. Therefore you found that when examining the traits of Luqman, Luqman was mentioned in the Quran because the way he followed Salatul Rahim was following the prophets who had come before and those who had come after him. Because Salatul Rahim and enjoining the relations with your womb relatives is seen as being one of the traits of the prophets of God. That if you want to be seen as being raised with the Anbiya on the Day of Judgment, enjoin Salatul Rahim and you will be raised alongside them. That's why when you look in the Quran, you find that there are some stories of Salatul Rahim where what you have to do is not just read them. No, read them and then ask yourself the question that if I was in the same situation, would I do the same thing or no? That's all you have to do. You see, the Quran, you can either use it as a book of history or you use it as a book of contemporary significance. I can know that there is a story about Habil and Qabil, but can I use it in my contemporary life? I can know there's a story of Ibrahim and his uncle. Can I use it in my contemporary life? I can know there's a story about our holy prophets and Abu Lahab, but can I use it in my contemporary life? Because the test of the Quran is not you knowing that the story exists. The test of the Quran is, do you apply the story into your everyday life? That's where the test is. That's why when you look in the Quran, there are certain stories I'd like you to go to where it would give us an impression of how important Salatul Rahim is in the great prophets of God. Go to Surah Al-Ma'idah, the surah which we examined in yesterday's majlis, Surah 5 of the Quran. Go to Surah Al-Ma'idah from verse 30 onwards, verse 28, sorry, verse 27, 28 onwards, Surah Al-Ma'idah. You see, those of you with the Quran in your hand, you will notice that we will start flicking through the Quran quickly and you build a relationship in Ramadan. The reason I tell you to have a Quran in your hand, because as soon as you hear a surah of the Quran, you should not think twice where it is. Ma'idah 5, Nisa 4. Straight away it should come into your head. Yusuf 12, okay, Maryam 19, automatic, like a computer. That is of course unless the school of Ahlul Bayt has left the Quran, but that's another question. Surah 5 verse number 27, let's go towards it. It talks about وَاتْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ ابْنَيْ آدَمَ بِالْحَقِّ إِذْ قَرَّبَا قُرْبَانًا فَتُقُبِّلَ مِنْ أَحَدِهِمَا وَلَمْ يُتَقَبَّلَ مِنَ الْآخَرِ. Here the story is given about Habil and Qabil, two brothers. How many of us here within this hall have brothers? Many of us, I'm sure. And we find that those of us who have brothers, there are moments, whether when we're younger or older, where there's a bit of friction between us. Sometimes jealousy between brothers. We saw in the story of Yusuf. Okay, not all of us have 11 brothers, but still, you may find that jealousy may occur sometimes, whether it's with one brother or 11. And you find here that there is jealousy which occurs. Why? Because there are two brothers. Nabi Adam is saying that one of you will be my successor. And therefore, of course, successorship is chosen by Allah, not by man. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells them what? He tells them both to offer a sacrifice. Whichever one is accepted is the one which is taken on board. The Quran says, look how the Quran begins. وَاتْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ. Recite to them. Which means what? Which means when you explain this to them, let them take it as an example in their life. Don't just recite to them and finish the surah. No, let them take it as an example. Let them apply it in their own life. Quran says, recite to them the story of the two sons of Adam with truth. When they both offered an offering, it was accepted from one of them and rejected from the other. Now listen to the way Qabil speaks to Habil, and listen to the way Habil replies back to Qabil. Qabil says to Habil, قَالَ لَأَقْتُلَنَّكَ. Because your sacrifice has been accepted and mine has been rejected, I will kill you. Sometimes brothers reach that stage where on the phone or on an email they tell their other brother, you continue in this way, you'll see, you should watch your back. Sometimes brothers speak with each other like that, and it's unfortunate. Here he says, قَالَ لَأَقْتُلَنَّكَ. Then the next verse, listen to the reply which comes forward from Habil. لَإِن بَسَطْتَ إِلَيَّ يَدَكَ لِتَقْتُلَنِي مَا أَنَا بِبَاسِطٍ يَدِيَ إِلَيْكَ لِأَقْتُلَكَ. If you raise forward your hand to kill me, I will not raise forward my hand to strike you. Why? Here's the main line which comes. إِنِّي أَخَافُ اللَّهَ رَبَّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Because when you're striking me, you're doing it out of your ego. And when you have the ego, it means you have no sense of God. Because anyone with an ego does not recognize the existence of a creator. Because anyone who recognizes the existence of a creator will know that he is insignificant. But when Habil replies, he says, إِنِّي أَخَافُ اللَّهِ. I can strike you easily. What is it? A matter of getting 5 or getting my knuckles together and my fists together and striking you? I can do that. But I fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because there's a day I'm going to have to answer about my behavior. And as the Hadith al-Qudsi says, and as all of you know very well, Hadith al-Qudsi are the words of Allah outside the Quran. As the Hadith al-Qudsi says, he who severs his relationship with his family, I will sever my relationship with him on the day of judgment. He who severs his relationship with his family, I'll sever my relationship with him. And what other relationship do you want on the day of judgment other than the relationship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Allahumma inni as'aluka al-amana yawma la yanfa'u malun wala banun illa man ata Allah biqalbin salim. I ask you and I seek refuge from you and I seek your help on the day when my wealth and my children will be of no avail to me. The only thing that will be avail to me is a heart that's understood you and feared you. That's the only thing. So in the first instance, you see Luqman followed the story of the sons of Adam. The second story Luqman was a follower of, or shared a trait of, was the story of Ibrahim with his uncle. Surah 19. Let's go to Surah 19, all of us. But I'll tell you, Dar es Salaam Jama'at has a great rate of people who've memorized Quran. Because there's so many people without a Quran in their hands. So there's a great rate of people who have memorized. Surah 19, verse number 46. Even if you don't want the Quran of the mosque, try and bring the Quran from your houses. And bring a sticker with it, and if you can take notes, it's excellent. Because we can transfer this knowledge to our sons and our daughters. Surah 19, verse number 46. When you look at it, you find Nabi Ibrahim was brought up by who? He was brought up by his uncle, not his father. Because in the school of Ahlul Bayt, although the Quran, when it speaks about him, it says, إِذْ قَالَ لِأَبِيهِ. Quran says, Ibrahim said to Abih. Ab means what? Ab means a guardian. Sometimes some of us, our fathers died young. And because they died young, we were brought up by our uncles. Our uncle, we didn't call him uncle anymore. We called him dad, didn't we? Because it's as if he was our father. Nabi Ibrahim, his father had passed away, so he was brought up by his uncle. Because in the school of Ahlul Bayt, we believe a prophet of God is not born to an idol worshipper. Every prophet of God is born to whom? To a believer in God. Okay? Nabi Ibrahim, his father, his uncle was an idol worshipper. And in verse number 42 of Surah 19, just before the main verse, إِذْ قَالَ لِأَبِيهِ يَا أَبَتِ لِمَ تَعْبُدُ مَا لَا يَسْمَعُ وَلَا يُبْصِرُ وَلَا يُغْنِ عَنْكَ شَيْئًا. My father, why'd you worship, my uncle, why'd you worship these idols? These idols, what do? They do not hear, nor do they see, nor can they even help you. It is ironic how low the human being can become. That he carves an idol from his own hands and worships it. But if you had the strength to make it, why are you worshipping it? But when a man is in Jahiliyyah, you can't get him out. Jahiliyyah can be the most dangerous thing in the human being. I've just chiseled the idol and then I go and worship it. If I've just chiseled it, why am I worshipping? When you look at it here, then he says, Ya abati inni qad ja'ani min al-ilmi ma lam ya'tika fattabi'ni ahdika siratan sawiya. He says to him that there's knowledge which has come to me. Knowledge from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Knowledge which will guide you. Then he says to him, Ya abati la ta'bud ash-shaytan. Do not worship shaitan, because an idol worshipper is one who is worshipping shaitan, because he's following the inclination of shaitan. For shaitan allows you either to disbelieve in God or to put partners in God. Inna shaitan